Death played a major role in the Harry Potter series from the very beginning, when we learnt that Harry was orphaned after the death of his parents, to the very end, when Harry had to overcome death to save the entire Wizarding world. But throughout the series, there were some deaths that there was just no reconciling with, no matter how hard we tried.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So here are the 10 saddest deaths in Harry Potter that we'll never get over. Number 10. Cedric Diggory. The pride of Hufflepuff was only 17 years old when he entered the final task of the Triwizard Tournament, and his life. After he and Harry Potter agreed to be co-winners, they were transported to the cemetery at Little Hangleton, where the cup turned out to be a portkey. Waiting there was none other than Voldemort and his devoted Death Eaters who had laid a trap for Harry. Cedric was immediately struck down merely because he was a nuisance to Voldemort's plan. The cold-blooded murder of a young person with such a bright future would be sad no matter who it was. But two specific factors make Cedric's one of the worst in the series. The first involves his father Amos's pained screams after his son's body is returned, a horrible moment witnessed by the entire school. The second is how his murder was no different to Voldemort than swatting away a fly. Poor Cedric deserved better. Number 9. Colin Creevey. Sure, Colin Creevey was incredibly annoying, but you couldn't help but feel for the poor little guy. After all, he was only 16 years old when he was killed by Death Eaters during the Battle of Hogwarts. His obsession with Harry was adorable, edging on creepy. But you can't blame him. He was just fond of taking his hero's picture any chance he had. He was brave and worthy of being sorted into Gryffindor, so it was no surprise when he signed up for Dumbledore's army to help ready himself to fight against Lord Voldemort. Especially since he had every right to be afraid of him. Colin almost died once before when he was petrified after seeing the basilisk from the Chamber of Secrets through his camera. He was a warm, friendly, noble young man who held a special place in fans' hearts for resembling an annoying kid brother you whine about, but fiercely protect. This is what made his death on that fateful day so hard to accept. Number 8. Dumbledore. So we probably should have guessed that this one was coming, since most adventure stories have a death of the mentor scene. His funeral was particularly heartbreaking, and Hogwarts never seemed the same without him. Readers eventually learned that Dumbledore's death from a fatal curse was imminent anyway, and that his final moment was really a brave attempt by the professor we know and love to save Draco Malfoy's soul from such a destructive act as murder. Yet, this didn't change the awful sadness we experienced when Severus Snape answered Dumbledore's pleas with Avada Kedavra. In that moment, it felt like the ultimate betrayal. No one knew that two dear old friends had just acted heroically under the most impossible of circumstances. Harry's mentor and protector had represented all that was wise and good in the wizarding world. And seeing him fall to his death from the tower was arguably one of the lowest, darkest points in the entire series. Number 7. Snape. Snape will always be a divisive character among fans, but love him or hate him, you can't deny that his death was ultimately heartbreaking. Sometimes he's romanticized because of his unrequited love for Lily. Others point out that he's unable to overcome his prejudice and obsession with dark magic. Either way, most of us spent the whole series hating him, only to find out his entire story just as he left us. As one of the most complicated and troubled characters in the series, Professor Snape's death at the hands of Voldemort didn't seem especially painful in that moment. He was a secret Death Eater who had betrayed and killed Dumbledore. It was only fitting he died because he trusted his Dark Lord. Once readers learned the truth about his life, it all changed. Snape had made terrible mistakes, but he had devoted his life to atone for them. He had treated Harry horribly at Hogwarts out of a long-held animosity for James Potter, but all that time he had bravely been trying to keep Harry safe. Only when he was gone did Harry learn who Professor Snape had really been, making his murder truly crushing. Will the death of Severus Snape forever make Harry Potter fans cry? Always. Number 6. Fred Weasley. Throughout the novels, it was inconceivable to imagine the Weasley twins without one another. The brothers did everything together, from pulling pranks on fellow students to undermining Dolores Umbridge when she was headmaster. The two were always side by side. The Weasleys were like Harry's family, which is why Fred's death during the Battle of Hogwarts hurt so much. The close-knit Weasley family, who had an emotional reconciliation with Percy right before the fight started, played such a meaningful role in Harry's life that losing one of them was completely devastating. Knowing that George would have to continue on without his twin made it even worse. If all of that wasn't enough, Fred died the way he lived, with a smile on his face. Number 5. Tonks. Fans would have been crushed by Tonks' death during the Battle of Hogwarts under any circumstances. However, her death was especially heartbreaking because she was killed alongside her new husband Remus Lupin, and she had recently given birth to their son Teddy. The brave witch with the ever-changing hair colour had trained to be an Auror under Mad-Eye Moody, so she joined the new Order of the Phoenix during the Second Wizarding War. She helped to rescue Harry and his friends from Death Eaters at the Department of Mysteries. She also was part of the team that helped Harry flee during the Battle of the Seven Potters. Fans would have wept over the death of Tonks no matter what, but the brutal circumstances surrounding her death made it so much worse, and Teddy being left an orphan just broke our hearts. Number 4. Remus Lupin. There are some who think Remus Lupin is the single saddest character in the entire Harry Potter series, because as a werewolf he lived an isolated and difficult life. No matter where you rank him on the list though, his death is one of the hardest to accept. The last living marauder and the best Defense Against the Dark Arts professor Harry had ever had, Remus Lupin was a mentor and friend to the boy who lived. He was also a brave wizard, a member of the original Order of the Phoenix, and a key part of its second iteration. His death was especially hard due to the circumstances of his life right before he died. He had finally accepted Tonks' love, and the two had married. Plus their son Teddy had just been born. When he was killed at the Battle of Hogwarts, he was truly happy for the first time in years, or perhaps even his life, making the death of him and his wife and the orphaning of their son even more excruciating. Number 3. Hedwig. Hedwig's death marked the death of innocence and the beginning of the end. When she was killed, we all felt the darkness of the last book edging in. The fearless bird was struck down by a killing curse, one that was probably meant for Hagrid, which ultimately saved him. The intelligent Hedwig had been a gift from Hagrid to Harry for his 11th birthday. The brave bird was with Harry throughout his most difficult times. Beyond the sadness of losing a pet, part of what made Hedwig's death so painful was how unexpected it was. The members of the Order of the Phoenix were all willing combatants in the Second Wizarding War. Readers knew they might not survive, but Hedwig was just a defenseless, innocent victim of Voldemort and his Death Eaters. Number 2. Dobby. Dobby was the epitome of innocence, who never was shown the respect he wanted or deserved. His love for Harry was beautiful and sweet, even if he did have trouble showing it. Just look at the bludger incident in the Chamber of Secrets. When Harry dug his grave by hand, trying to give him respect that most house elves never saw, the moment was absolutely heart-wrenching, and just like with Hedwig, we saw death of innocence yet again. No character in the series was more pure of heart than Dobby. He died at the hands of Bellatrix Lestrange while saving Harry one final time. There is no doubt that Dobby's death was one of the saddest deaths in the entire series. Here lies Dobby, a free elf. Number 1. Sirius Black. You couldn't help but feel completely heartbroken for Harry when Sirius died. It seemed that Harry would finally have what he wanted most, a family, and get to finally escape the abuse that he had tolerated from the Dursleys. He was supposed to live with Sirius, and then Sirius fell beyond the veil, locked in a duel with Bellatrix. The infamous criminal Sirius Black was one of the great victims of the Harry Potter series, and his death stands as one of the most heartbreaking. He was framed by one of his closest friends, Peter Pettigrew, for both betraying his best friend James Potter and killing 12 Muggles. As a result, Sirius, who had also been estranged from his family since the age of 16, spent much of his adult life suffering at Azkaban. Even when he managed to escape, he had to live in hiding, which kept him largely apart from his godson Harry. Sirius spent his life breaking away from the dark life of the Black family that he was expected to follow, and ultimately chose to fight against the dark side. He was an original member of the Order of the Phoenix, who fought to stop Voldemort and his followers, including members of his own family. When the Order came to fight against Voldemort and the Death Eaters at the Department of Mysteries, Sirius met his heartbreaking end. During the massive fight, he was struck down by his own cousin Bellatrix. Seeing him fall lifelessly through the veil in the Death Chamber right in front of Harry was one of the most brutal, saddest, and unexpected deaths in the books. What made Sirius's death even worse was the impact it had on Harry, especially as Harry screamed into the two-way mirror as he struggled to accept Sirius's death. With the death of Sirius, so too did Harry's hope for being reunited with his family. Nope, there's no getting over this one. Can you think of any other deaths in Harry Potter that had you crying or that you're still not over years later? Let us know in the comments.